Boston College plays Syracuse this weekend. This could be the biggest game for Boston College and the future of this program in years.
You are Locked On Boston College, your daily podcast on the Boston College Eagles. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome. This is Locked On Boston College, your team every day. I'm your host, AJ Black, editor of the Eagle Insider, part of the 247 Network. Thank you all for checking out my work over there. And thank you all who made Locked On Boston College your first listen every single day. Today, I want to talk about the Syracuse game that's coming up on Saturday. I almost said Friday. It feels like every game for BC football has been a weekday. But I want to talk about that. I also want to look at why the wide receivers and Tommy Castellanos, some issues are going on there that have caused the offense to stall. We'll look at that. What's going on with practice? We'll have a question. I'm going to talk a little bit about that. And finally, basketball opens their season with a win. Didn't feel like a win, though. We'll get into all of that on today's show. All right, and to join us today, we have Mitchell Wolf of Eagle Insider. He's our staff writer. Mitch, how's it going?
I'd be doing better if I hadn't watched that BC basketball game, to be honest with you. But you're going to talk about that later.
Yeah, it wasn't pretty. But let's kick this off with football, who has been off for about 2 weeks now, and well, not really, but it's close to 2 weeks. We're looking at the Syracuse game, and you texted me something, Mitch. You said that this game could be one of the most important games for BC in years. Now, that might have been a little bit of a hyperbole, but what are your thoughts on this?
So I was thinking about this game because when I was researching Syracuse and I was just thinking about what BC needs to do to win this game, I was thinking just how badly they need this win after this 3-game skid. That Virginia loss kind of really tainted things, and then it's just kind of snowballed from there. And I think and we'll get into this later in the week, but I think Syracuse is very beatable, which led me to think, okay, they should win this, or they could win this game. I think they should win this game, honestly. So how does it go if we win or we lose? And I think if BC wins or BC loses, and I think if BC wins, they can kind of stave off the season is over talk. And I think you could argue that the season was kind of took a big turn with the Virginia loss. And if they lose this game, if they win it, then it's like, okay, we can stave off the bad stuff, and they lose, it's completely over. Because then I'm not sure if they win again the rest of the season. And finishing 4-8 after a 4-1 start, 5-1 start, 4-1 start, it would be disastrous. That'd be 7 straight losses. So, and I was thinking back at the past few years. I was okay. Last year, after the NIU loss, the whole season was kind of like, this is bad. Like whatever happens, happens. And obviously, like we got to the point where BC was winning a bunch of games in a row. It's like, oh, this is like, it was basically house money at that point. And then people got ahead of their skis talking about the path, and it all tumbled from there. Go back to 2022. None of the games mattered because the offensive line was so terrible and everything was bad. 2021, I would argue that none of the games after Phil Dracovic got hurt mattered. 2020, you could throw the whole season out. 2019, everything after Kansas loss didn't matter. And so this brings me back to like 2018. And you probably could say the game day night game against Clemson in 2018, where BC was ranked. Callum had Mike Walker. No.
Yeah, it's Mike Walker there.
Mike Walker had the punt return for a touchdown, loudest I've ever heard Alumni Stadium. And then Christian Wilkins had a dirty hit on Anthony Brown, and we got to see EJ Perry. So, I think that since then, you could argue that when I'm looking at the games in terms of how the program is progressing, those games that they lost in those seasons kind of just tanked everything. It's like, well, it's just another season. And we're not at that point in this season because we kind of know what BC is at this point. But if they lose this, then we're into a tier below, and that's really bad.
So it feels like this isn't like to take BC to the next level. This is like to kind of maintain a semblance of a respectable season. Like if they lose this, it feels like things are going to fall apart and the wheels are going to come off.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think honestly, when I was thinking about how this bye week went, I really think that, or I hope this because I don't actually have as much of a stake in the program. I hope that Bill O'Brien made it clear to everybody that like these next 4 games will determine who is here next year and who isn't, because I think there should be jobs and spots on the team on the line. Not saying for people to be cut, but just as it is in EA college football, encouraged to transfer because I think that it's a kind of a weirdly constructed roster. They're bringing in this big high school class of freshmen. They're starting to play some of the younger guys that are already on the roster. So, I think they could, if this goes badly, like I think this could be the entire team roster and coaching staff could be due for a ton of turnover.
And the biggest one, we bring him up all the time, is Tommy Castellanos. Like, if he has a tough game again, like I based off of just gut feelings, it feels like this is his big game too. Like, if he doesn't have a big game here and he doesn't do what they need to do to win, like this, a lot of these losses are on him, and like it feels like it's on.
Yeah. I mean, it's just
like,
because he's the quarterback that happens. But we've kind of, I've at least tried to push back on that there are a lot of things going wrong with this team. But it's also true that he is not playing well enough, and that some of his mistakes and problems are causing problems that are contributing to them losing games.
Right. But you got to feel though that if they lose this and the season falls apart, I would say the odds of him coming back, either because of his choice or Bill's choice, have to decrease even more, I would think, right?
Yeah, I mean, I would totally agree with that. Again, not necessarily something I want, because I do like Castellanos as a leader, as a player. I do think he has a future as a good college quarterback. I don't think he has a future as a professional quarterback. But I think I say this, and I don't like that's where we are, because the precedent that sets where O'Brien comes in and then the season falls apart and then he has to completely overturn the roster. Like, that's just, it's, you can say he needs to do it, but it's just not good. Like, you don't want to establish that precedent in your first season where you had to clean house after the first year because the season fell apart with some of the blame falling on him and the coaching staff for not having this team prepared to play 60-minute games for the months of October and possibly November.
Right. And it feels like they broke something that didn't need to be fixed.
Yeah.
What I mean?
Yeah, kind of.
Like, your offense was okay last year, and then you just basically ripped it apart and tried to rebuild it.
Yeah. I mean, that's something that we kind of talked about, like them kind of needing to do, but yeah, maybe they just went too far with it. So yeah.
But maybe we'll talk in a little bit about maybe something that they are changing, and we'll figure that out in a little bit. But do you think Syracuse is a beatable team?
Oh, absolutely. I want to save it because all right. Well, actually, I'll give you three things.
Give us a nugget. Give us a nugget.
I'll give you a few nuggets because I texted you about this today. Okay, so there are three things that I found for Syracuse that they are really bad at, and they're all really important. So first of all, Syracuse, their missed tackle rate is 18.7%. That is the fifth worst in the FBS and the worst among Power 4 teams. They are also the worst team according to special teams by EPA. They lose, I think it's about a touchdown of EPA per game. I'm pulling it up now. They're even worse than BC, because BC is like 129th, and Syracuse is negative 5.42 EPA per game lost on special teams at 134th worst in the FBS. BC is 133rd at minus 3.44. So a whole safety worse than BC at special teams, which is crazy. And that's punting. Their punting is really bad as well. And then they've just kind of been bad otherwise. And then they rank in the hundreds in both penalties and penalty yards. So penalties per game, they are 105th at 7.25. And they have 59.6 penalty yards per game, which ranks 100th. So a team that is bad at tackling, a team that is terrible on special teams, and a team that commits a lot of penalties. That is a team that is not good at the details. It's not good at being disciplined. And that, they're 6-2 at this point. All their wins outside of Ohio and Holy Cross have been by a touchdown or less. We saw it come back to roost a bit against Pitt, where everything went wrong, and that's kind of just sucks for them. But we're seeing these things kind of, and they had this big comeback against Virginia Tech to win in overtime. These things are going to come home to roost for Syracuse, and hopefully they can happen this week.
All right, in a moment, I want to talk about some issues that have been going on with the offense. I want to get Mitch's take on a debate that's started up on some of the sites. I want to talk about the wide receivers versus the tight ends. We'll get into that in just a moment. But before we do that, I want to get into Roy. So, hey, Boston College fans, it's time to recognize the Roy Player of the Week. So far this season, we've pulled over $20,000 to support players on Roy. Micro deposits lead to massive change. With the Roy app, you can direct your support to the athletes you love, ensuring that all funds go to the specific player you choose. Unlike collectives, you know exactly where your support is going, and you even receive exclusive content like personal videos and updates after the season. The best part, it's risk-free. If the athlete transfers or doesn't deliver the content, you get your money back. This week, Mitch, we didn't have a game this week, so I get to pick any Boston College player I want. And there's a player you've mentioned a few times. I've been really heavy on the Roy players on the defense. I'm going to pick Kamari Morales for this one. I want to pick him because I feel like he's had a lot of big plays this year, and I've enjoyed watching him. And he's been a real treat to watch, and probably one of the better transfers they've landed. So I'm going to pitch in $100, and I'd love for you all to join me. Even $10 make a difference. Let's show Kamari Morales the love and keep him connected to our school. Remember, pay today, celebrate tomorrow. Your support sets your team up for success. Please don't miss out on Roy's exciting giveaways with 2 tickets to a game in November. Just download Roy, create an account, and enter referral code Locked On, and you're entered. Already on Roy, any contribution to an athlete's campaign also gets you entered automatically. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited. Download Roy now and join the NIL game. Also, get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. Now, if you're not in the state of Massachusetts, you saw the odds for Boston College and the Citadel. It's like the Ohio State, the Citadel, and it was a 16.5-point spread. I thought that was ridiculous. I would have wagered on the Citadel. I'm not in the state, so I couldn't. But that seemed like easy money, and if you just joined FanDuel, you would have won. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, though, you can also check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bet. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Locked On Boston College, AJ Black here, and we're talking about this upcoming game against Syracuse. And the big change that needs to be made has to be the offense. The offense has not been clicking, and as Bill O'Brien would say over and over again, they're not doing what they need to do to win games. Now, I saw that Rivals put up a post about how the tight ends are an issue, and Mitch and I were both saying that's probably not the case. We have a different thesis on the offense and a few different things that are going on. Mitch, let's talk about the wide receivers and Tommy Castellanos. What is going on there?
So this was kind of an issue that bubbled up in the summer, honestly, where people were a little concerned about the wide receivers and their inability to gain separation and, defeat the cornerbacks in practice. And, we saw that, we saw that the cornerbacks were actually playing pretty well to start the season. So it's like, okay, maybe they're pretty good. And receivers still have some issues. Okay, maybe they'll figure it out. And they really haven't figured it out, to be honest. Just even after playing, in the early part of the season, they got Florida State and Missouri, 2 of the more athletic secondaries in the country. So they're going to have some issues there. But as the season went on, this issue has continued to pop up. And when I went back and rewatched the film of the first few games, I felt that the big outside receivers, and that would be Jaden Skeet, Reed Harris, and to a lesser extent, Jerron Bradley, because he's not playing as much and he's not getting targeted anywhere near as much. And honestly, I would say Bradley is probably better at it than Harris. And that's probably because, again, Harris is a tight end wide receiver hybrid who played quarterback in high school. So, but that's a consistent personnel issue we're seeing at this position. We can talk about this some other time. But those guys are just not separating enough, especially against man coverage, which is a problem unto itself. But then I'm also seeing plays where they are getting open, and it's always like they're open, but the offensive line is at a bust. Jack Conley gets beat off the snap, so Castellanos is starting the run. There's also sometimes where Castellanos just doesn't see them. They have sometimes some weird plays where I don't really understand why they're having Castellanos read one side of the field first and then come back to the other. And I feel like they should be flipped, or he only stays on one side of the field. So, as I've said for like basically since I've started being on the show, there's a lot of problems happening at the same time. And some of them, can be solved with coaching, and that's changing the progressions, making sure Tommy actually reads the full field. Some of them, and that could go to the offensive line too, get guys on the field who can play better and, try to get the guys who are playing to just be better, which it's pretty much a lost cause of Jack Conley at this point. And then some of it is, it's something that you really can't control with the players, at least when they're on the field. Like, you're not going to really make Jaden Skeet or Reed Harris faster or quicker. And, I think part of the thing with Skeet is interesting is that I think he put on weight from last season to, hold up against, to be able to be stronger at the catch point. And when Skeet has been targeted, he has been very good at contested catch situations on the sideline. He's been good. Just the problem is it's been some separation issues. And also sometimes there's just some weird plays where actually guys aren't used properly. And one of them I texted you about was that True Media offers stats on the frequency of routes run. And I was looking at BC's roster and I looked at Jerron Bradley and I found that his most frequently ran route is a hitch route, which is run 5 yards and turn around and stop. And, I've tried defend Will Lowing a little bit here and there, and say, okay, we can't just say the play calling is bad because they didn't call the touchdown play. Using Jerron Bradley on hitch routes when he is a very good downfield contested catch receiver is absolutely insane to me.
Criminal.
Exactly. And what they would do is and I know they like this concept a lot, and you have to mix in certain things, but there was one play, it was late against Virginia Tech, and they had a play where it was it was a fourth down. It was fourth, I think it was 4th and 9. It was the first time they went down at the red zone near the end of that game, and they failed. Near the end. And they run what they call bear, which is it's also known as shock, but it's the outside receiver runs a hitch, the slot receiver runs a fade, and then the tight end or the number 3 receiver to the inside runs a stick route. Now, first of all, only two of those routes are not getting the first down on 4th and 9, that's one, that's bad. 2, you're having Lewis Bond run the slot fade, and he is not really a vertical receiver, both in terms of speed and size. And again, you're having Jerron Bradley run a hitch route where he runs 5 yards, turns around, and stops. And I'm just like, this makes absolutely no sense. And there are a lot of times, and when I was watching back, I did realize this. There are times where they are calling plays where there's basically one, maybe two, but it's usually one or they're only getting to one. And this can go back to the offensive line, the progressions, but there are not enough routes that are actually going to the first down marker to get the first down. And that is and I have said, if you want to throw the ball short of the first down to at least set up an easier 4th down attempt, that's fine with me. But there are too many times where guys are just nowhere near the first down line. It's like, this is what's killing the offense, is that there's one route that is this entire play is designed around. And if it doesn't get open, the whole play is kaput, aside from Castellanos just scrambling.
So bad.
Yes.
So it sounds like a lot of it's cliche to just blame coaches. I feel like it just feels like everyone just blames the coaches for everything, but it feels like play calling is a bit of an issue here.
Yeah. And not even just calling, but design and just concepts are we focusing on, putting the players in the right position to succeed where they can most easily succeed. So it goes beyond play calling. It goes to the entire game planning, offensive schematic design.
So it sounds like it's Bass backwards. I'm going to use that word because I get it. But shouldn't Lewis Bond be running the hitch? And
so that concept specifically is a lot. So you've played EA's college football, so that's basically stick, but instead of the slot receiver running the little out route or to the flat, the outside receiver would run the go route and stick, and that I forget what they call that in this offense, but that's your traditional stick. And that's honestly, Louisville runs that a lot. So that's the traditional way to run stick. If you flip the outside receiver and the inside receiver, so you put the hitch outside, you have the outside receiver to pull a defender there, and you have the inside slot fade, because slot fades are generally pretty good routes, or it's a good concept, especially. So that has taken over a lot of popularity as receivers now are generally, the better receivers are now playing from the slot. And I would say that, to Lewis Bond's credit, he has been BC's best receiver in terms of separation against man and zone. He's been very effective in both. Still not perfect, but definitely a tier above the rest. So, that's just one specific design, and he doesn't line up. He only lines up outside, I think, on 40% of his snaps. So it's pretty rare. But that's just one example where it's this just doesn't. And again, you can't just do what the defense expects every time. But in a situation where you have to have it, like that 4th and 9 where you're down by a bunch of scores, you got to put your best playmakers in the best position to win, and they're not doing that enough.
So speaking of this, before you go, the big news today, at least interesting, was that Bill O'Brien closed practice to the media. Now,
I don't know, AJ, that signals nothing of significance to me.
I know, and I know you tweeted that because so there's a lot that could happen from this. There could just be that Bill's pissed and doesn't want anyone there.
Again, a very likely scenario.
Very likely.
I would put that at this is going to come out on Tuesday. I'm going to forecast this at about 60% likelihood.
60% likelihood Bill's just angry.
Yeah.
Side note, I have to say one of my new favorites, and you might get it on TV, but I bet they bleep it out, is when you're in the press box and the ref is making a call and Bill is near enough to his microphone that you just catch him blowing a gasket.
There's a
It's
few times I've been able to hear it on the broadcast.
that's totally a side note. I'm just kind of getting off topic here, but there's also other things that he could be doing. There's other things that could be hidden and we don't know about it. Now, the first thing, obviously, folks are going to go to is my doomsday scenario,
Our doomsday
our
scenario.
doomsday scenario that Grayson James is going to start at quarterback. I hope to God that that's not the case because I've seen enough of him at the Western Kentucky game. He's not the
And
answer.
also, everything that I just said should tell you that the problems with the offense are not stemming necessarily from the quarterback position. Like
Right.
the problems that are there and can be fixed would not be fixed by changing out the quarterback. In fact, I would argue that it'd be made worse.
And I'd honestly almost put him benching if that was the case, and I don't think it's going to, but if he was to bench Tommy Castellanos, I'd almost put that like right below Jeff Hafley benching Emmett Moorhead after talking him up for an entire summer. It's almost the same thing because like all Bill has been doing is talking about Tommy, and if he benches him for reasons, then that
I mean, I will say, like, if in the game Tommy throws like 3 picks in the first half, then
that's different.
fine.
But
Yep.
yep. So that's one option. The other option, it could be a coaching change that he just doesn't want to see. Maybe Bill's calling the plays now. Maybe something like that, and he just doesn't want people to see that. I don't think that would be the case. I feel like he wouldn't care.
I think that's more likely than the quarterback thing.
Really? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. And then finally, as you mentioned too, there's option 3 that he could be hiding. And it's not the punter. I don't think he cares about the punting. I know people are asking me, like, is he going to do with the punter? I'm like, I'm sure he's not blocking the media because of punting.
Yeah, everybody knows it's bad. Like, there's no secret to be gained there. I mean, unless, like, maybe they found somebody in the student body that's just the next
Steve Aponovicius.
Thank you. Yep. Yeah.
No, I don't think that's it. But maybe it's more that it's a schematic thing, as you mentioned. Maybe that he doesn't want folks to see, which is hilarious because, as you said, like, you know the stuff better than us. If they went in and started running more, I don't think anyone in the media would understand or know. So that could be a thing too. Like maybe they're going to go more towards what Castellanos did last year. And they just don't want people to see it and know that that's where they're coming at.
And we'll get into this later in the week, but I think that I think that would actually be my second most likely. But I think that's tied to the the play caller change. But I think that I think the reason why is because I think that based on what I've seen from Syracuse, again, we'll talk about this later, they could kind of have a bespoke game plan for this game that they do want to keep hidden because, again, there are things that I've seen when watching Syracuse and the opponents they face. It's like, okay, BC is very well equipped to take advantage of some of these things, and he's like, okay, we got to keep some of this stuff hidden. I mean, I think Syracuse probably has a decent idea of what they struggle with and what BC could do to exploit that, but this is Bill Belichick this is Bill O'Brien from the Bill Belichick tree, where information security is huge. So I could see that being a thing where they are creating this kind of special game plan. They have the bye week; they can do that, so they can kind of ideally catch Syracuse by surprise and kind of salvage this season, as we talked about.
So we'll find out tomorrow if they give us anything, but we'll tell you on tomorrow's show if there's more information. Clearly, if he's hiding it, but again, this could all just be Bill being mad. That could be very much could be
60% on that.
Yep. So, Mitch, where can people find your work?
You can find me at Mitchell T. Wolf, WOLFE on Twitter. Check out our work in Eagle Insider. We'll have the matchup report for Syracuse coming out possibly by the time you're listening to this, maybe the next day, we'll see. And then previewing Syracuse later in the week. And then obviously, like we said, basketball season starts. I will not be covering it, thank God. But I don't need to subject myself to more mental trauma with BC athletics. So, yeah.
Speaking of bad basketball, in a moment, I'm going to talk about the first game. They didn't lose. That's a positive. But there's a lot more garbage that we get to sift through. I'm going to get into all of that. Thank you for coming on the show today, Mitch. We'll see you again on Friday's show. We'll be back in just a moment. Z-Biotics pre-alcohol probiotic drink is the world's first genetically engineered probiotic. It was invented by PhD scientists to tackle moaning after drinking. Here's how it works. When you drink, alcohol gets converted into a toxic byproduct in the gut. It's this byproduct, not dehydration, that's to blame for your rough next day. Pre-alcohol produces an enzyme to break the byproduct down. Just remember to take a Z-Biotic before your first drink of the night. Drink responsibly and you'll feel your best tomorrow. So I gave a pre-alcohol a try when I was going out to watch some Sunday night football. I drank it before my first beer, and when you wouldn't believe how on top of my game I felt the next morning, I was able to write, I was able to think. It got rid of all that bad feelings. So drink your pre-alcohol. For best results, make pre-alcohol your first drink of the night. Drink responsibly and enjoy tomorrow. So go to zbiotics.com/lockedon to college to learn more and get 15% off your first order when you use Locked On College at checkout. Z-Biotics is backed with a 100% money back guarantee. So if you're unsatisfied for any reason, they'll refund your money, no questions asked. Remember to head to zbiotics.com/lockedoncollege and use the code LockedOnCollege at checkout for 15% off. Locked On Boston College, AJ Black. We had talk football, but we'll talk a little basketball before we head out. Boston College basketball opened their season on Monday night against the Citadel. This is a rematch from last year where BC struggled in Charleston to beat the Citadel. I think they won 75-71. This game was marginally better. They won 69-61 or 69-60, not covering the 16.5-point spread as I joked about earlier. This was slop, just slop. You had Donald Hand on one hand, no pun intended, scoring 20 plus points, but also having 10 rebounds. But almost all of that came at the charity stripe. Credit to him. He had 11 free throws, but he also shot like 4 for 14 from the floor. You had it felt like no offensive rhythm at all. This game started with Elijah Strong scoring pretty well, but he went invisible in the second half. Chad Venning all of a sudden became like your go-to offensive player, and he doesn't look like that kind of player. And you're doing this against the Citadel, who also, just like Boston College, replaced almost all of their starters from last year. And if you listen to the broadcast, I wasn't there. I had one of my writers there. All they talked about was how this team was filled with Division II and Division III players. So that's great. Boston College won by 9 points, and Citadel kept crawling back against a team full of Division II and Division III players. That does not bode well for the future of this team. BC shot 27% in the second half. They were doing okay. Like they felt like they were going okay. And then of course, in the first half, they had like they were leading by, let me see my split box. They were winning by 12 points, and then they let up a half court 3-point shot, of course. And so the second half starts, BC goes on a run, but then Citadel, who had shot 2 for 18 from 3-point range, all of a sudden starts hitting everything. And they're drawing, they bring the lead down and they shrink it. It never got super close, but BC for like large periods of that second half looked bad. They just looked bad. You had Chaz Kelly. Chaz Kelly is supposed to be one of your starting guards. He finishes the day going 0 for 4 from the line with no points. He played, I'm trying to find his minutes. They don't have the minutes on no, he played 19 minutes with 0 points. Yeah. 5 rebounds and 1 assist from your point guard. 1 assist. No, not good. Not good. You had Dion Brown, is your guy that you're supposed to have as your scorer, broke his nose at practice this week. So he had one of those masks on, the one that Quentin Post had on a couple years ago. And he came off the bench. He played okay, but he only played, where is it? 5 minutes. 5 minutes that he played. Sorry, not 5 minutes. I'm wrong. 17 minutes. He played only 17 minutes. This is going to be your guy. I mean, he's coming back from a sports hernia. He had the broken nose, but that's gonna be your guy to score because him and Hand. I think Hand will get better. He's aggressive. That's good, but Chaz Kelly cannot be it. He's going to be your ball handler. Chad Venning needs to slow down. And I don't know. I was hoping, this is what I was hoping for. And this is um, more of my naivete. I was hoping you're playing Citadel at home. You could pull off a 20-point win and feel decent going through forward for this. You won by 9. You didn't do what you needed to do. I felt like this was sloppy. I did not like watching this because I felt like the offense was garbage. The defense was better, but they fell apart late. So this is your warm up. This was your warm up game. You have VCU on Friday. VCU is projected by the A10 media to win that conference. Their Power 6 conference. That's going to be a heck of a game for BC and they're going to be in a load of trouble if they play the way they did tonight. They were playing against a team filled with D2 and D3 transfers. I had to listen to it all night long. That's all they kept talking about. They had a guy from WPI, all these different schools, D2, D3, and they were making BC's life heck because BC's offense was wild and out of control through most of this game. So not a good win for BC. You won, but it didn't feel like a win. It felt like you did what you needed to do, but not enough. All right, we'll be back on tomorrow's show to talk more about this upcoming game against Syracuse. We'll hopefully be doing a crossover episode soon with Locked On Syracuse. I will be getting that set up soon. Thank you all, and as you see, I got my new swag from the Friends of the Heights. If you have not subscribed to the Friends of the Heights, part of the BC NIL Collective, you got to do that soon too. Thank you all for following along. You can follow me on Twitter at AJBlack247 or check me out on Eagle Insider. Thank you all so much for checking out Locked On Boston College and making it your first listen today every day. Check out Locked On ACC when you get done with this episode. For Mitch, this is AJ. I'll see you all again soon. Take care, everyone.